Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Talk to SATV, sponsored by Grand Palace Hotel and Resort, where we dive into deep discussions of most pressing global and national issues. Today, our guest is Honorable First Female Ambassador of Bangladesh, Ambassador Nasim Firdaus. Welcome to Talk to SATV.
Thank you.
Today, we will discuss about Iran-Israel conflict and its regional and global implications, along with Bangladesh's foreign policy. Madam Ambassador, welcome to Talk to SATV. Before diving into the current events, can you briefly state your experience as an ambassador to Egypt and how you understand the geopolitics of Middle East?
Thank you for having me. The geopolitics of the Middle East is a very old one, a very complex one, and one of the important things to remember is that that region is the crucible where all the three Abrahamic religions, the Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, came to. And each one they followed each other, and a change in the religion or in the script was always brought about a complex relationship between the people, among the people who were living in that, who were occupying in that region at the time. So it has been complex from that time onwards, ending with Islam, which was the last book revealed, and then dividing Islam again in terms of succession. So from that point of view, you see this current divide in Middle East following the old 1400-year-old conflict in a different way. Iran is the only major Shia country in the world and the only Shia country in Middle East which has so much power and authority, and the Iranians believe that they are the rightful successors of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and so they should be the sort of center of the Islamic world. The others are on the other side of the spectrum, and they believe that they are, So it's the geopolitics of Middle East was based on religion first, and now it is based on wealth, on who has how much wealth. Iran is a very oil-rich country. It's a very rich country. Used to be a very rich country, both in terms of the resources, oil being number one, and as well as other resources. A lot of things they had, agricultural resources that are expensive stuff and all that. So the land itself is so rich in terms of what is underground and what is above ground, that there has always been a fight for those resources in that area. And Egypt, on the other hand, is a complex country by itself. Its population is a combination of Islamic, of Christian beliefs, and amongst the Islamic beliefs there are different, we have segments believing in certain
Shia and Sunni being the major one.
Yeah, and also in the school of law, there are different, Shafi and Hanbali and all that. So Egypt is the crucible where all the knowledge is. Mm-hmm. And so it is a complex country. So it was a very interesting posting in terms of seeing this wealth and how they have lived for so many thousands of years, and still continue to believe in a lot of things. There are archaeological history is so rich, and yet it is not Islamic. It's all of this is pre-Islamic, and the current regime is an Islamic regime. So it's a combination. Egypt is relatively peaceful. One of the few, but then it's not right on it's on the edge of Middle East. It's actually in the African continent. So they are not as much touched, I suppose, as by the infightings in the rest of the world, in the rest of the Islamic world. It was a very interesting posting. The unfortunate thing, or the fortunate thing for the Egyptian people, was the uprising that caused the Arab Spring and toppled the then government. I served in Egypt when President Mubarak was the president. And then the Muslim Brotherhood won the election, came over, and then it was removed, and then again the army came over. So for some reason, I feel that the Middle East has a very strong history of dictatorship and survives well under dictatorship. And that is true for Iran too. It's not a democratic country per se, as we in Bangladesh would call democracy. Iran is a big dictatorship.
Okay. So why is it want to support the Axis forces like Hezbollah, Hamas, and Houthi? They popularly known as axis of resistance. They want to have the hegemony over the region. That's their desire. Why do they support these small groups?
Iranians.
Iranians. Is it always the same, or it's a new dimension that we are seeing right now? They don't want a direct war. They support these small groups like Hamas, Hezbollah, Houthi in Yemen. So what they want to establish? They want to establish the hegemony over the region? That's their desire?
I'm not an Iranian expert, but I would say Iran would not be so much interested in creating a hegemony by supporting these smaller groups which have been identified or named by Western world as terrorists, all of them. So Iran is not interested in, I don't think is interested in expanding or supporting terrorism per se. But what Iran is trying to perhaps tell the world is that each country or each society has its own rights to be protected, and that the Western world does not, because whatever is happening with the West. So the Western world has no place in Middle East. That is what Iran is probably trying to.
That's the spirit of the post-revolution, Islamic revolution in Iran, that Western world should go away from Middle East.
Yes, but that is, the revolution took 50 years ago, took place 50 years ago, about the time when Bangladesh was born. So, but Iran is old. The Shah of Iran claimed his heritage from a very old system of, kingship and all that. So
backed by the Westerns.
Yes. Well, yes. If it is a truly Islamic country, which the Islamic Revolutionary Government at this point claims it to be, Iran could not have been a kingdom the way it was in Shah's time, because Islam doesn't support kingdoms. So it's a dichotomy there, and like Saudi Arabia, Jordan, all of them are kingdoms, but that is not the way. Then they are not. How do they, justify this kingdom with the religion? It's difficult to fathom.
True.
But I don't think Iran is supporting these small groups. These are recent. Iran is supporting these small groups in the recent times. It probably has felt threatened by both the American foreign policy, changes in the foreign policy, as well as the Israeli attempt to annihilate Iran completely. And so they probably felt that they have to establish a more secure ground in these neighboring countries, which is Yemen. Iran and Saudi Arabia have been at loggerheads forever. So Yemen is besides Saudi Arabia. So they wanted extension of their authority or a support base beyond Saudi Arabia. So these probably are the issues, but it's more complex than that. In recent times, I mean, they have been attacked, and these Houthis and others will come to very little use for Iran. They
True.
don't have the
Capacity as well.
capacity, the means, the establishment to support Iran's war with Israel. So these are just, strings attached to Iran.
So how would you rate the desire and capacity of the Iranians to go for an all-out war with Israel? Do they have the capacity? Because as you have mentioned, they used to be a rich country, but now after the sanctions that Western world has put, after the UN sanction, and do they have the capacity to go for an all-out war with Israel? Because Israel has weapons from United States of America. Their surveillance system is very strong. They're attacking with most advanced jets like F-15, F-16 and F-35. These are like third generation and fourth generation aircraft. Then they're bombarding on Tehran, and they're specific on their target. They have made the targeted killing of 4 generals and leaders. So they're very, they're very successful in their operations. So does Iran have the capacity at this point of time to go on an all-out war with Israel?
I would pose a question. Did Iran have an option? Iran was not the one who started the war in this case. It was bombed by Israel first, and all the generals and military leadership that have been killed, have been targeted by Israel, and they've been killed and eliminated because Israel felt threatened by these leadership. Israel has always wanted Iran to. Iran is a huge country facing Israel, and Israel has always been wary of Iran's strength, especially the nuclear strength, and is afraid that if Iran gets a nuclear bomb, then it is absolutely possible for Iran to do, in terms of capacity, be the cause of extinction of Israel. So Israel is genuinely afraid of Iran having a bomb. Therefore, Israel thought it was, in their estimation, it was the best timing to, now that they had decimated Gaza, and they have also decimated Hamas. They have removed all the generals, the top thinkers, the top planners from the scenario. So it was the opportune moment for Israel to attack Iran. Now, Iran did not walk out of the nuclear negotiations. It was always the United States which either walked out or put a roadblock in front of Iran in a way that Iran had to stop, or, every country wants to protect its interest. Iran feels threatened clearly it feels threatened not only by Israel. It had faced Iraq for 9 years, and it was America's proxy war.
True.
So Iran's fear is an existential threat of being eliminated forever from the face of the earth, and the leadership which came through a revolution, that would be eliminated. So that's why it would be difficult for Iran to not fight the war that they are fighting. They have to fight back, and again, for their existence. Otherwise, if they don't take on Israel in this war, then they will be clearly wiped out. And I don't know if you have noticed this afternoon, President Trump has just returned from the G7 meeting a day ahead. He returned to Washington at 5 a.m. in the morning. So it must be a very, very important reason. And he has said so when he was leaving the G7 meeting, he said this is bigger than certain other considerations that were being discussed at the time. So Israel is looking for the B-2 bomber, from asking the Americans to provide them the B-2 bombers to bomb the nuclear facilities completely, so that Iran doesn't have any more possibility of developing a nuclear warhead. Options for Iran is limited. They have to fight it out. And that President Trump very, justly said that sometimes they have to fight it out. Since the war has started, it has to come to an end by a negotiated settlement, which will be much more preferable for the rest of the world, or it will have to be Israel killing the Iranians completely, finishing them off in terms of their nuclear. Now the question is, if B-2 bomber goes and bombs these nuclear facilities, what happens then? Whether the region becomes nuclear active, in the sense that, leakages and stuff. Even if you forget the Second World War and what happened to Japan at the time, think of more recent accidents like the Chernobyl accident. The leakage caused enormous damage to the atmosphere. And so, any bombing of any facility in Iran has a big risk element. And whether the Americans are going to actually help Israel bomb Iranian nuclear facilities to the extent that they are diminished to zero without causing any harm to the environment, only the experts can say what can happen. But Iran, I don't think, has an option anymore. If they had been able to negotiate whatever was on the table at the time, and if they had been able to bring the Americans to some sort of a sanity on their side, but Americans have always, it doesn't matter whether it's a democratic government or it's a Republican government, they have always sided with Israel. So Iran is actually not fighting Israel alone. Iran is also fighting the US. And the US government has warned Iran that they should not cause harm to American interests anywhere in the world, not only Middle East, but not anywhere else. So this is a big question.
Okay. So we will come back to the discussion where it's not the choice that Iran have. So ladies and gentlemen, now it's time for go to a short break. After the break, do come back. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Talk to S.A.TV again. Before the break, we were discussing about the option that Iran do have. Basically, they don't have any option because this war is being actually imposed on them. Now, the question to you is, according to Lord Hammond, the ex-Foreign Secretary and the Chancellor of the United Kingdom, he said that it's not possible for Israel to, annihilate the whole nuclear program of Iran. Basically, Israel doesn't have that capacity to stop the nuclear program of Iran. But within this war, so as you have mentioned as well, they will need the United States. But because the facilities are deeply rooted under the ground, under the stones, so you need strongest bombardment machines to actually annihilate the whole program. Maybe temporarily they would be able to stop it. They would be able to hamper it through targeted killing of scientists, major generals, and all that. So how the world would de-escalate these tensions or this conflict? Because it's not going to end, and both the parties, they don't look like they're going to stop. So what would be the panacea for this?
Look, Israelis have never faced a war before. This is the first time that they are seeing it, real-time destruction in Tel Aviv and elsewhere in Haifa and other major cities and places. So it's also going to be a test for the Israeli population, how much they can tolerate, how much they're going to take in, how much are they going to give their government the freedom to, continue with the war, for how long. Now, the Israeli Prime Minister has already warned its population that this war has started. It was not by our choice, and now we will have to continue this until we can bring an absolute end to Iranian nuclear program. I think that the most recent development of President Trump returning to the US from G7 is an indication that it will either be that the Americans will give the B-2 bomber to the Israelis to hit the Iranian nuclear facilities, go deep underground. One of the most difficult bombing experiments they will be doing over a nuclear facility, and then hoping that this bombing will not create a problem for the Israelis as well, because they can't control the air, they can't control the atmosphere.
True.
So one doesn't know what will happen after the bombing. One doesn't know what the Iranians have stored there, whether they do have atomic bombs or they don't have. The world says that they still don't have an atomic bomb. But what else do they have? Iranians are obviously feeling they're on very strong footing at this time, and are taking the war ahead. As I said, there is no option for them, so they are going ahead with the war. Whether the Israelis can sustain this war is the big question. Because after a point, when they were attacking Gaza, the diminished Gaza, the decimated Gaza, afterwards the Israeli population rose against the war. A part of the population rose against the war. But they won't be able to decimate Iran completely, as you have also said. So therefore, whether this will be sustainable for the population, that's the big thing to see. It's a small country, it's not a huge country, and the population is very well lit. So I think it is the bigger issue for the Prime Minister of Israel was his own survival. And that's why he went into Gaza and he went now into Iran to show the people that he has, he can take decisions that are drastic, dramatic, and neither party will have any option but to continue or to come to an understanding and a negotiated settlement, which is very difficult to come at this point in time.
But do you think that United States of America still have the capacity to get Israel on the negotiation table? Because they're using United States of America's weapon, and most importantly, the targeted killing that they have started. So you have to stop them, because Iran is somehow bound to go on a war right now. The regime is not very sustainable. It doesn't look like, because they have sections, they have dissections in the regime as well. So does United States of America still have the capacity to bring Israel on the negotiation table? Because I was, JCPOA, while it was about to take place, Donald Trump, he basically, after coming into the power, he stopped JCPOA. So, and as you have mentioned, IAEA, International Atomic Energy Association, they have warned about the, environment degradation and the disastrous effect that if a nuclear war, or because Iran has the ballistic missiles like Fatah, which actually dissected the air of Israel. And Israel have the Jericho 2, which is a nuclear weapon, which they never deny, which they never assert, which they never admit. So, but we all know they have the nuclear weapon. So now, is it all on United States to stop this war?
Simply by not giving any more ammunitions to Israel. That's the only way this war can stop. And don't forget that Iran fought an 8-year war with Iraq, which was supported 100% by the US at the time. And Iran at the time was very weak. It was right after the revolution. It was still very torn inside and divided. but still it managed to sustain that war for 8 years against a much stronger force at the time, Iraq. Iraq was much stronger at the time. So, their people's support to the government is very important. And at this point in time, Iran seems to have full support of its population. That's important. How long will Israel's population support Prime Minister Netanyahu is a big question. Can they tolerate to see this level of destruction within Israel, as now they're seeing in Tel Aviv and Haifa and other cities, whether Iran can, cause more damage to Israel? That is an important thing to consider. It's a very difficult question to answer, whether this war will continue or this war will come to an end. Very difficult too. So if the US and the others truly want to end it, they can offer a sensible negotiating proposal to the Iranians. I don't know what will be sensible to them at this point in time when they have lost so much, or provide Israel with the ammunitions they are asking for, so that just 3 options open to the United States. This war will end or continue with the help of the US. That's the only other big force that is working behind this war. Russia didn't get involved. North Korea didn't get involved. Pakistan is the only nuclear country which voiced its support for Iran, but it would be fatal for Pakistan to actually come forward and do anything for Iran. Not that Iran and Pakistan have the best of relations. They've not had this. They've had, from time to time, they've had border skirmishes. They've had other skirmishes with Iran, difficulties with Iran. So it's really up to the US, President Trump, to decide whether he wants to end this war now or he wants to allow the Israelis to continue, and by that measure, the Iranians to continue to bomb Israel. One thing is clear, that Israel's Iron Dome didn't work last time and is not working now either. Even today, Iran has thrown missiles, ballistic missiles and other missiles, and they have penetrated Israeli, the famous Iron Dome. So therefore, Israel is not sure of its complete security.
So basically, whether Israel will abide by President Trump's, statement about that both 5 parties have to go on a ceasefire, because for Iran there is no option. If the ceasefire proposal comes, whether they will accept it or not, or as a nation they will never bow down. So what do you think? That because ceasefire
Iran
option should come from United States of America. So if that ceasefire proposal comes, do you think the both parties will accept? Because Benjamin Netanyahu doesn't look like that he will accept, because when JCPO was about to happen, the nuclear disarmament treaty between United States of America and Iran, so he was the biggest impediment towards that. He never wanted that. So now whether the same person will accept the United Nations effort, or United States of America's effort to go for a ceasefire. So what do you think? What's the psyche behind?
You see, when JCPO did not come to a successful end, it's the same principle still applies. Benjamin Netanyahu is still there, and he doesn't want the US to negotiate with Iran for a peaceful settlement. So he will not want it. And at this point in time, he probably thinks he is he has the upper hand. He's destroying Iran's armaments. He's destroying the leadership at the top, and so he probably feels buoyed by this. But at the same time, the destruction in Israel by the Iranians is also something that he has to take into account. And so it is very difficult to say whether the Iranians and the Israelis will agree to any complete, with the US, to a complete halt of hostilities at this point in time. I think there will have to be more countries coming into the negotiation to try to show us, show the two countries have a face-saving way out. Otherwise, it will be very difficult. It's very difficult to say now, unless President Trump, as we speak now, President Trump decides that he wants to give the bomb to the B-2 bombers to Israel, and that will surely end the war in a different way. At least take the war in a different way. We don't know what Iran has in its hands and how it is going to, whether Russia will come to its aid, which seems unlikely. But another maverick is there, the North Koreans. One doesn't know how the North Koreans are going to actually react, what kind of agreement they have, or what kind of feelings they have towards U.S. involvement, direct involvement. Because if the U.S. gives B-2 bombers to Israel, it will be U.S.'s direct involvement. In a way, it will be a direct involvement in the war.
True.
And then whether North Korea will stand by, watch, or is going to, it has already made a declaration that they are on the side of Iran. So it's very difficult to make a statement on that now, at this stage.
Ladies and gentlemen, now it's time to go on a short break. Please do come back after the break. Welcome to Talk to S.A.TV, sponsored by Grand Palace Hotel and Resort. Before the break, we were discussing about the indispensable situation that we were in Middle East. Now we will shift towards Bangladesh foreign policy, because after the post 5th August, after the revolution, do you think the foreign policy has shifted in Bangladesh?
It's a difficult question, because before saying that the foreign policy of Bangladesh has shifted, we have to figure out whether Bangladesh had a foreign policy that needed a shift, or a foreign policy. Are we following the foreign policy that was? Did we follow the foreign policy that existed at the time? Obviously, we're not doing that, because friendship with India has been on the back foot. Bangladesh's relationship with India has been on the back foot. Now, importantly, Bangladesh has found new friends with the change of government. And hopefully these friends will continue to stay with Bangladesh in the future, because the choice for the next government must be made by the people of Bangladesh, not by anybody else, not any international player or any XYZ country, but it has to be a choice by our own people. And once they have come into power, whoever comes into power, that political philosophy of that party, clearly there will have to be one party which will come into power. So that political philosophy of the party at the time will tell us whether there is going to be a major shift in Bangladesh's foreign policy or not. Having said that, I must add that Bangladesh doesn't have a big choice in shifting its foreign policy. We have to try to stay independent of all these troubles around the world. We have to look after our own interests, which is development, and based on increased economic activity, industrialization, and creating our own, expanding our economic base. So foreign policy is dependent on how strong you are economically as a country. How strong you are, I wouldn't say in terms of using the military power, but how strong you look in terms of the military power. It will depend on how that shapes in the next 5 years when the new government comes, because we are going to have election next year, as has been proposed by the interim government. The interim government's job is not to tinker with the foreign policy. Its job is to keep Bangladesh on a steady path, and they are doing well in that respect so far. There are a few more months to go, so we'll see what happens.
So let us move to the South Asia. So as we were discussing before the show, the SAARC is the most least integrated. South Asia is most least integrated. Even African Union is more successful in terms of integration, trade, and commerce than SAARC. You have a pivotal role, as we were discussing before the show, that you have to come back from Europe to Bangladesh for a SAARC conference back in '85. So how do you see the future of SAARC and Bangladesh? I'd love to hear some of your memories when you have started, and then right now it's kind of non-operative or ineffective, I would say.
Okay, there are a couple of things I should actually correct right on. First, I was the junior most officer in the ministry at the time, in the SAARC chain. I was only a senior assistant secretary at the time, but because there has to be a starting point, that used to be the starting point, the desk officer. So I came to know, to witness a lot of things at that time. SAARC, some people love to say that SAARC is dead. I don't think so. I don't think so, because the fact that it was started by 7 heads of government and state with the commitment to bring peace to the region, do other things, development, enhance the life and livelihood of the people of South Asia. And to that end, they had technical committees established, people from all the 7 countries, technical people, not people with knowledge, were working on different sectors, including agriculture and fisheries and scientific. So those things are still continuing, despite SAARC not having a summit. It's not having the heads of government and state not meeting together, not sitting around the table anymore. That does not mean SAARC is dead, or an end has come. The speed of taking SAARC forward, or the speed with which we would like to see the integration of the region, has slowed down significantly.
That's because of India and Pakistan, do you think? They're the biggest impediment towards this integration?
I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that, because it depends on all heads of state. They have to get together and decide. They work, their office has to work to find out a solution to the problems. Personality problems existed even during those times, in the first SAARC summit as well. There's a very interesting thing that I think I can mention at this time. It's been over 30 years plus that SAARC was, for the first SAARC summit was held. At the summit there was an event organized. There were lots of events organized for the 7 heads of state and government and their spouses and the ministers accompanying them, to bring them together. Integration. Basically, that was the beginning of the integration of the governments and the people. There was an event organized with this SAARC stamps, FDC, first day cover. It's called, in postal language, it's called first day cover. They used to take out this stamp and put it on an envelope that it had that stamp, and the heads of state were supposed to cancel those together at the same time. And each country had 2 stamps issued for SAARC summit. Now, at the last moment, maybe about 15-20 minutes or half an hour before the actual ceremony where they were going to cancel those stamps out, the Indian delegation came and reported to Bangladesh that they can't join the signing ceremony, because the Pakistani stamp, one of the Pakistani stamps, had shown Kashmir as a part, the whole of Kashmir as a part of Pakistan. Now, this is a very highly contentious political issue. So how do you tackle that? Anyway, the higher-ups were asked to go and talk to the Pakistan president and to the Indian Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi to resolve this problem. You know, the Pakistan president was Ziaul Haq, General Ziaul Haq.
General Zia.
And he was really very magnanimous, I would say, and very cautious of the fact that if this cancellation didn't take place, then there will be a disaster. He said in Urdu, he said, "Koi baat nahi, main ek cancel karunga." He is going to cancel only one stamp. He doesn't mind doing, while others, the other 6 heads of government will be cancelling 2 stamps each, 2 envelopes each, he will do 1. And he did that. And the problem was resolved. That was the spirit of SAARC. To negotiate, to resolve problems without going into conflict. Kashmir remains an issue with India and Pakistan to this day. But they managed to resolve that one there. And Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi was also magnanimous. He didn't mind if everybody was asked to cancel only 1 stamp. There would be other smaller states which would, I think, would create a problem. There were smaller incidences like these, many of them, that showed the magnanimity or lack of it among the leadership.
Success of diplomacy as well. Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Nasim Firdaus. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, we were discussing about different international tensions. Ambassador Nasim Firdaus advised that how we could meander through this difficult time if we want to de-escalate from Iran-Israel war and what's on the plate. United Nations Convention says even United Nations will not interfere in any internal matter of the state until that internal matter affects international peace and security. The doctrine of non-intervention is on the verge of ruin, on the verge of drowning. So we are facing a difficult time. So we have discussed elaborately how SAARC could, revived and the memories that she have of SAARC and how it could be more efficient despite having the differences. We will come back to a next show with another guest, and until that moment, goodbye. Allah Hafiz. Thank you so much.